Welcome, I'm Sam Faddis. This is Ground Truth. And look, today we're going to be talking to somebody I've talked to several times before and I've known for a while now, Dr. Stephen Hatfill. I'm not going to spend the hour it would take for me at least to read all of his qualifications. I'll steal a line from Armageddon. He's pretty much the smartest man on the planet, so you might want to pay attention to what he has to say. But I will post his qualifications and at least a summary of his CV online with this video when it goes live. And what we want to talk to the doc in particular today is about what's going on at HHS and what it says more generally about medical freedom and vaccines and all of that stuff. But anyway, Doc, welcome. Thanks for agreeing to talk to me.
Oh, Sam, anytime. It's always a pleasure.
Well, good. You need to write a note that says that. I'll give it to my wife. So when, when she doesn't think so, but then she's had to live full time with me for 46 years. So
Well, that
uh,
would be trying too, I would imagine.
I couldn't live with me for that time. Look, all kidding aside,
Yeah.
you were named, and this is my terminology. I don't want to get lost in the controversy of titles. You became like the special medical advisor to RFK Jr., who's running HHS, and your background is
No,
virology.
no, no.
I'm sorry. Okay, I made a mistake already. What's
I I became a senior advisor, Schedule C, to ASPR, the Administration
okay?
for Strategic Preparedness and Response.
Okay.
That's a long name, but it's about $3 billion for $3.5 billion organization. And its task is to respond actively, operationally, respond to disasters, whether it's massive flooding or massive weather like hurricanes, North Carolina. Um, it does the job that FEMA was supposed to years ago
Right.
and before FEMA became useless.
Yes.
And but it's operational. So BARDA is underneath it to stimulate,
And what is BARDA for those of us
the
who?
Biological Advanced Research Projects
Okay.
Development Agency.
All right.
So this was like for weapons of mass destruction, coming up with new medical countermeasures.
Okay. And just so everybody understands context, this isn't when we say that you were holding these positions, this is in this administration. I mean,
Yeah,
this you were named to these positions after Trump was elected.
yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know, about 3 months later, the boss came in and said he wanted to meet me to be the chief medical officer for
And the boss in this case
ASPR,
is who?
Mr. John Knox,
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm tracking.
national hero. This guy
Okay.
was in the rubble on 9/11,
Right.
looking for survivors, no respirator, breathing in all that stuff.
Yeah. This is the guy who didn't bother with his own personal safety to rescue
No,
other Americans.
he just from police, from all your first responder communities. He's worked there.
Okay.
Skid Row and in um, Los Angeles
Right.
by choice because that's where he was needed. Deputy police officer, something
So this is the
with
guy.
law enforcement.
This guy wants you
EMT.
to be in this position.
Yeah. So they did. It was nothing I did. Hang on.
We lost the doc momentarily, but he'll be back. I think.
Well,
I was telling everybody that that's the fastest any guest has ever walked off. That's,
they issued me these cards. Can you read it?
yep, I got you. Okay, so you're named as what is the official term now? Chief Medical Officer?
Uh, yeah, it says senior advisor and chief medical officer.
Okay.
I didn't create these cards.
Right.
Then they had the computer guy come in and type on my email that gives the Asper logo and says Senior Advisor and Chief Medical Officer. It had nothing to do with me.
Right.
Now suddenly I'm claiming to be Chief Medical Officer, and I'm not.
Well, so this is all, am I correct in saying this is all within HHS?
Yeah.
Okay. But you're brought on, and the backdrop here again, I'll list the doc's qualifications, in print here to go along with this video. But the backdrop here is that, I mean, my characterization, but I think this is fair. You've been one of the guys who's the leading critic of the way we responded to COVID, the madness of the vaccines, all of this for a
Yeah.
long time. And you were, I mean, since it started, and now you're brought into HHS in this senior capacity. And to me, honestly, I thought that was one of the really bright spots as this administration took power. Like, okay, now we got a guy who's an actual expert and who has been telling the truth on all these issues for a long time. And he's now in HHS, but not so very long ago, all of a sudden, they tell you goodbye, your services are no longer required and you don't work here anymore. Do I have that right?
Well, I got a phone call from a young guy that's now the chief of staff for the secretary, stating that the secretary wanted my resignation.
The secretary being RFK Jr.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that didn't make any sense to me.
Right.
The only thing I'd done was cost the pharmaceutical companies like $500 million
Yeah.
by canceling all these ridiculous messenger RNA projects that have killed and crippled hundreds of thousands. That's the data. A lot of Americans don't know that. It's been suppressed. But there's a lot of doctors that know it, and a lot of people that have figured it out. Or actually, you have to dig, but all the information's out there. And look, I couldn't have my name signed to some of these proposals to go ahead. It wasn't right. So we discussed this. Jay Bhattacharya came over to the offices, and three of us, the principal deputy secretary, and myself and Jay. He's a very kind man. But again, he's over there in his own nest of demons. They have 100. One of the projects I had canceled for a bird flu vaccine, which single antigen, it's only going to work for a couple weeks till it mutates. No, they're right now as we speak, they're collecting volunteers for clinical tests. I'd banned something like that in, I think it was August. So they just go somewhere else for funny. Vaxart, another company, they've got a pill. Actually, they got something that'll go through the stomach acid and maintain what's inside. And then when it gets to your small intestine, it opens up and it floods your gut with messenger RNA molecules, which we now know cause, and the only word to describe it is biochemical havoc. There's a technique called, without getting too technical, differential gene expression analysis. We can now take a snapshot of a tissue and we can tell what genes are coming on and off in response to, let's say, a messenger RNA vaccine. And my gosh, it's causing the cells to lose their mind. They start turning off important genes for function and turning on distress genes, DNA repair, all sorts of stuff. They're turning on some bad stuff too, like things associated with cancer, or turning off cancer suppressor genes. And this isn't just for a brief period at a time. And if you inject it in the arm, this can go on for, well, I think we're at 3 years now.
And this is
There's
all, and this is all going to happen now.
looks like it, nobody to stop them.
Well, so let me roll back the tape just a minute. So you're in there in HHS. You're part of, and anytime, obviously, not that you've ever been shy about this, Doc, but anytime I mischaracterize anything, obviously, it pull me up short. But you're part of, instrumental in, as you noted, getting the government to cancel roughly $500 million in funding for more mRNA vaccines. And real quick after that, all of a sudden, they want you out of the building. Do I have that right?
Not real quick. I had already packed my desk when I did it. I had no personal possessions there, really. I had papers
You're a smart man, Doc. You do.
and a couple signed books that Secretary Kennedy gave me. But
And
no,
also,
no,
and also
that
for
was
the record, just so, because you won't say this, but I want everybody to know this, they asked you to quit, and you said something to the effect of, "If you want me out of here, fire me. I'm not giving you the satisfaction of being able to say I quit." Is that accurate?
no, I told them, well, I got a phone call, not from Mr. Kennedy, but from this like young chief of staff that used to be the white HHS liaison to the White House, to what's her name, Susie Wiles, and the Sergio Gore, and the people that were selecting the over 3,000 people to populate the federal government.
Right.
So this just didn't make sense. I was down in Florida getting my annual physical. The furlough was in effect. So I took leave, although, I was coming in every day. I took leave and nicked down to Florida for a week and had just finished. It was, I think he phoned on my birthday and I couldn't take the call. I was going in for an echo. And he wanted to phone the next day. Okay, yeah, phone anytime. So he phoned and we're chatting away. And he's like, did you write that paper on disease surveillance? And suggesting that the DIA be involved. I said, I wrote a white paper describing a fusion center and suggested putting it into the DIA. I said that the paper went off to DARPA and a few other people. It's just, these are what white papers are for. They're to stimulate thinking and to try and see if we couldn't get pandemic preparedness all under one roof. Like, not overpopulated, a small team acting as a sheepdog, data mining, watching day and night for any sort of unusual outbreak.
Right.
And then having a means to rapidly get CDC epidemiologists on the ground if it's inside the country.
Right.
Or if it's a war zone, some of our more specialized soldiers on the ground with training
Mm-hmm.
In epidemiology. That had been done in Vietnam before all the helicopters came over.
Hmm.
And it was a very effective special forces unit.
Hmm.
It did field epidemiology in the middle of a combat zone. So something like that. And it's a concept paper. I've written a lot of them in my career. So have you. You've written concept things that you think might make things better.
Right.
So I said, yeah, that's. I did write a paper on that topic, and I had sent it to DARPA, and they said, well, okay, that's the one news. Now the other news you won't like. The secretary has asked for your resignation. I said, well, that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Um, but that week, I couldn't make the meeting because I was in Florida. But there was a briefing to Mr. Kennedy from my PDS, Principal Deputy Secretary, and they brought over Gary Disbrow from BARDA, and I was supervising BARDA as part of my assigned tasks.
Right.
And it was about getting rid of a second round of messenger RNA or DNA products, which are even worse, that they were trying to do everything with. This was an interfering DNA, RNA type thing where you'd be injected, I assume, by lipid nanoparticles and into your airway, and that this nucleic acids would be released, and they would bind to the viral RNA in your airway that's, trying to make new viruses. And I thought, well, this is just insane. This is people trying to make money.
Right.
We're aware of the havoc that these things are causing biochemically. And fantastic, this will be really expensive. You're going to, some of these DNA fragments are inserting into your own chromosomes. That's been documented now.
Right.
They're in there permanently. You can't get it out. And there's now been a kid born whose mother was vaccinated with mRNA. He was stillborn. They resuscitated him. He's been sick for the last 3 years, never been vaccinated, and he's got spike protein floating around in his bloodstream, spike protein polymers. So they looked at his genetic material, and yeah, he's making it. There was a very young lady. I mean, 31-year-olds don't get bladder cancer. Okay, 31-year-old women, and she'd gotten, I think, her third, like Pfizer, and very quickly developed an aggressive bladder cancer. And they looked at her genetic material, and she's got uh, contaminating DNA fragments from the vaccine embedded in her chromosome 19 in the cells that they looked at. So this stuff, one, it's getting through the placenta within an hour. All the studies that tried to show it didn't do that was too late. It had already gone through within an hour of injection. If you're looking at the mice model, it's in all the pups circulating in their bloodstream, and it's active because the fetuses start making viral spike protein. So you're causing biochemical havoc to the cells of a developing fetus. The federal health agencies say, no, this isn't causing any birth defects. They only look at live births. There's been a 76% increase in miscarriages. And I've talked to a few people, and some of these miscarriages really are monsters. So this has been nothing but lies. The pharmaceutical companies have been running this response with the blessing of corrupted FDA and surprisingly CDC personnel. Doge got rid of some of them, but they're still ingrained. And it's been a feeding trough for pigs for big pharma. Everybody putting out products, highly contaminated vials of vaccine. But you go to the general literature and what the average American reads, and all looks well. No, fact checkers, there's been little bits of DNA contamination, but it's nothing. Well, over 600 times the FDA allowed limit, I would call something.
Yeah.
So when your cell sees all this material entering it, it thinks it's a virus attacking it. And everything shifts over to the Alamo. And if the cell can't stop it, there's a mechanism where your tissue will kill itself. It's called apoptosis. It's a genetic program that the cell can activate to save the rest of the tissue. If it becomes viral infected, it will commit suicide. If it doesn't, the poor cell is so worn out after all this, it activates mitochondria, which are the little powerhouses in your cell. It activates those, and they stop making ATP, and they start showering the inside of the cell with hydrogen peroxide and free oxygen radicals, trying to break up any of the nucleic acid. You see, your cell is, we evolved in a sea of other nucleic acids everywhere around us, viruses everywhere. Our cells, the first cells that it came about, developed mechanisms to tell this belongs here and this doesn't.
Right.
And it's done by methylation. Our genes are methylated, and it's actually become part of a control function. Like as we're becoming embryos, there's a stage where we have web fingers and feet. And then suddenly that just disappears. It doesn't go necrotic, it doesn't fall off. It literally just disappears. It breaks up into tiny microscopic bits and it's absorbed by other cells. Okay, that's apoptosis. That's that cell programming, but only in the web part between our fingers. So it's become a control mechanism for our genes as well. If we're going to be a boy, we're fine. If we're going to be a girl with 2 X chromosomes, one of those X chromosomes is going to be methylated and roll up into a tight little ball. And you can actually see this on a blood film. They're called nuclear drumsticks. And they're kept that way because they only need one. You don't want a double dose of genes of anything. That's disruptive to your cell as well. So all this has come about over, I don't know. It's the design is, we're still learning things every day.
So Doc, let me shift gears on you for a minute. You're there at HHS. You guys successfully kill off, my figure, roughly $500 million in government funding for mRNA.
About 700 billion.
Okay, and then what I'm hearing is there's still discussion of maybe there are going to be more vaccines anyway, and all of a sudden you got to be ushered out the door. I mean, when
well, here's
if
the thing.
my characterization of that is somebody decided, or somebody's decided, you got to go because you were talking about pigs at the trough. Well, the pigs are not going to let you keep taking away the feed. You got to get the hell out because we're not going to cut off this gravy train. Is that fair? Is that accurate? Am I
That's
lost?
kind of what I think. That's a pretty good analogy. This this briefing that was given to the secretary um, concerned. I won't mention the product, but again, it was an interfering sort of messenger RNA thing.
Mhm.
And we know from the Pfizer data that these copy DNA vaccines, the AstraZeneca and the J&J, were associated with worse outcomes for the patients and a higher incidence of cancer. These shots can cause cancer, they're carcinogenesis. That's one of the things that may happen to a cell if it can't get like certain types of foreign DNA cleared up. It can become senescent, it can go cancerous, or it can kill itself. And it will do that to save the rest of the tissue. It's programmed into it. And this is what these things were triggering. Billions of messenger RNA molecules suddenly flooding into a cell, overriding all the normal protein manufacturing mechanisms and controls. Ribosomes are so overloaded, they start missing part of the message to translate into proteins. It's called frame shifting. The net result is proteins nature's never seen before. You don't know what they do, if they have any function at all. It can only be described as biochemical havoc.
So you got, I mean, you know, this is frankly insane. I mean, in the sense, but in the sense that you have the U.S. government not only permitting this, but funding this in bed with people that are creating something that is hurting people, killing people, causing all these issues, and in fact has been, if not requiring, certainly encouraging people to take this stuff. And here we are under Donald Trump with RFK Jr. in as HHS secretary, and we're finally seeing the government take the first serious steps, again, my characterization, to change this. And the next scene is your services are no longer required. You need to get the hell out. That smells really bad to me. How is this
Well,
possible? How does this happen in a Trump administration?
Sam, I was just, you know, like one of the later ones. Jerry Parker, have you ever heard of him?
Generally, yes. I'm not, yes.
Jerry, he was a colonel at USAMRIID,
Mhm.
and he was my ultimate boss. He ran USAMRIID when I was working on Ebola.
So that
And
for lay people, we're talking Fort Detrick, yes?
yes,
Right.
just a wonderful leader, looks after his people, defends them, all these rare qualities. Just a wonderful man and knowledgeable, a veterinarian, but also a PhD level,
Right.
running research programs against the most deadliest organisms on the planet successfully. And he had been at ASPR, and he'd had a number of, I mean, he'd been all around weapons inspector, the whole thing. You couldn't have found a better guy. And after John Bolton destroyed pandemic preparedness, which had been sort of centered at the National Security Council, he came in and cleared it all out. And then COVID broke out. Under the Biden administration, Congress mandated a pandemic preparedness office. It's law. You have to have one of these. And um, they established it. They put some people in there, and a staff of about 20. And of course, they never challenged the vaccines or anything, or ever told the American public that, oh, by the way, that little segment in those vaccines that we're going to inject into you causes microclots to occur throughout your body. No one's ever Mr. Kennedy alluded to it, but no one has ever stood up and said, look, we're going to inject you with a poison, okay? So back to the story. So Jerry Parker gets in, I think, oh my God, thank God we've got somebody in there. Because just before that, the selection was for very early, right after Mr. Kennedy was selected. This Dr. McCary appeared. And Dr. McCary, he was asked on the vaccines. He says, yeah, I think they're okay. I said, no, it's not. He says, well, I'm willing to study, the data. And we're all open mouthed, like, this isn't a on the job learning sort of appointment.
Yeah.
And he's really done nothing. It was supposed to be everything's clinical trial. They very shortly allowed another messenger RNA to go through from Moderna, the Spikevax thing. So, I mean, we just banned this technology. I got on television on Steve Bannon's show and tried to explain why. And then I was shut off. Stephanie Spear, his principal deputy secretary, I think is what she's called. And then I got a phone call from Matt Buckham, who now suddenly is like the chief of staff for Mr. Kennedy. Like, no, everything has to go through Stephanie. I said, well, Secretary Kennedy told me to get on as many programs as possible.
Right.
Told me face to face. Because you've got to defend this, Sam.
Yeah, of course.
Big Pharma's going to complain. Senators are going to start, bought senators, purchased senators are going to start complaining, and representatives. You've got to get out there early, and you've got to, here's why we did this. These things are harmful. And nothing.
So, Doc, let me ask you.
Wasn't allowed to.
Let me ask
Wasn't
you.
allowed to.
Let me ask you a question, and I know this is, if you don't want to answer it, that's fair.
What?
Where is RFK Jr. in all of this? I mean, what I'm hearing is, huh? Go ahead.
I don't know.
I mean, what I'm hearing is that Big Pharma is fighting back and trying to neuter this movement. I mean, prevent real change.
Well, yeah, they
The
are.
man has been beating the drum, and God bless him. I mean that for real, in public for years on this kind of issue. And now he's there as the head of HHS. Where is he?
Well, let me tell you something, Sam. And it's like one of the saddest pictures I've ever seen. A few weeks ago, while I think I was still at HHS. Pfizer committed fraud. The vaccines never prevented infection. They never stopped disease transmission. They never gave a less serious disease, or if they did, it was only for a short period of time. By the end of 2021, the vaccinated were dying in larger numbers than the unvaccinated from COVID.
Right.
from COVID.
Right.
The product that was injected into what, 70% of Americans isn't the product that underwent clinical trials. The product that underwent clinical trials was very purified by a rather expensive manufacturing method. And it wasn't suitable for mass production. So they went back to recombinant DNA technology, like we make some drugs. And they grew it up in bacterial plasmids, these little circular pieces of
Right.
DNA, and they harvested it, and there was no quality control. They didn't purify it properly, stuck it in lipoparticles, and shot it into people's arms. That product had never been clinically tested. And to start with, Pfizer never used the spike protein to see if it was harmful on its own. They used a surrogate protein from, I think it was cytomegalovirus, from one of their other mRNA vaccine projects. And the FDA said, yeah. It says, look, it's about the same size. We'll just use this, and Operation Warp Speed will hurry up and get it out there. Okay, the FDA said, fine. Nobody looked at the viral spike protein and found out it was pathogenic in itself. Purified viral spike protein injected into the tail vein of a rat, and its heart explodes.
Yeah, that sounds like not optimal.
Yeah.
But Doc, I keep coming back to this, which is this parade of horrors. And now we're finally in a position with Donald Trump in the White House, and of all people, RFK
Let me go
Jr.,
back to
HHS secretary, and yet we still can't win this fight?
let me go back to my sad picture. There on the screen is President Trump shaking hands with the chief CEO of Pfizer to thank him for his effort to bring company investments to bring drug manufacturing back to America with lower drug prices for all Americans. And sort of in the background is Mr. Kennedy. How would you feel? You stuck your neck out to block something that had to be stopped. And the next thing you know, it's still out there. It's being promoted at the pharmacies still. And the president shaking hands with the man that literally should be in jail.
Yeah.
How would you feel?
Yeah, to completely betrayed.
Yeah. Maybe there's a master plan, Sam. I don't know. It's none of my business.
Well, look, I mean,
But
with all,
I'll tell you what,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
motivation disappeared everywhere.
Yeah,
Then
it's like,
the furloughs
what are we doing
started.
here? What are we doing here? Are we for real
Yeah.
or?
Yeah. I don't leave a fight once it's started. But I was seriously starting to regret coming there. And my boss is like, next to Peter Navarro, is like the best guy I have ever worked for.
Right.
PDS John Knox. They were a real American hero. And I'm not going to abandon him. So I get this phone call, from Matt Buckham. Well, we want you to, the secretary's decided that he wants to take ASPR in a new direction. Well, this is the same little weasel that when I went in, that interviewed me for the job when he was HHS liaison. and told me, look, John Knox got in because Mr. Kennedy wanted him, but they don't. He never defined who they was. I think it was probably Susie Wiles or somebody. I don't know. I'm guessing here. But it was somebody really important that decided they didn't want John Knox there.
Right.
And it wasn't Mr. Kennedy.
Right.
So who put Marty McCary in there? My understanding was Mr. Kennedy wanted some really tough FDA people and former FDA people in there to sort things out. And he got an abdominal surgeon that knew nothing about the FDA. He's a very nice man. He's a kind man, Sam.
Sure. But doesn't
But
make
it's
him
a vanity
qualified.
appointment. You're not going to stir the wagon there.
That's right.
And his whole FDA is in an uproar now. And they're after him, wondering, should he step down or not? Because everything's out of control.
Let me
So,
throw out a broader thesis to you, Doc, because I've been saying this for a while, that, you know, the deep state, and I'm speaking, painting with a really broad brush. When I say deep state, I mean the powers that be, the people who actually pull levers in
yeah,
Washington, which are largely the moneyed interests, the oligarchs, whatever
of
name you want to
course.
use. They're not threatened by the fact that Donald Trump puts his guy in at head of HHS or FBI or CIA or wherever.
Yeah,
That's fine
yeah,
because that in and of itself changes nothing until we actually start to see the rubber meets the road and we actually start making fundamental change. And that as soon as there was even a whisper of that, it became clear that they were going to fight back and they were going to prevent that. You want RFK Jr. to run HHS? That's groovy, but we're not cutting off the money train. And you want Kash Patel over at FBI? That's cool, but we're not actually going to change anything at FBI. Does that make sense to you? I mean,
well, it's what's happened. Is it right? No, it's not what people voted for,
no, it's not.
but it certainly seems like that's what's happened. We should right now have, from day one, put in a joint special prosecutor. What's the proper name for that?
Well, independent counsel, whatever. Yes,
Yeah, whatever. We should have had one of those, and DOJ merged with a non-corruptible scientific team,
yes,
doctors and scientists that have fought this from day one, and working together in a joint task force and rounding these people up. The Faucis, the Woodcocks, the people that got rid of early drug treatment, which the data it's successfully
sure,
works. It's
sure.
safe to make way for remdesivir, which never worked. The British study showed it. All it did was kill you and kill your kidneys. And now make room for the messenger RNA vaccine technology. So we could start rounding that up. And there's confined punishments involved. It's negligent homicide.
Yeah,
Want
it
to
is.
take it. You
Yes,
cannot mandate people to have an experimental shot and then change the rules so it's not experimental anymore. Still don't understand everything those things are doing. So it's just a complete breakdown of everything. Big Pharma, if that's probably as good a name as any, ran the pandemic in 2020. Poor president's not a biomedical scientist or a
no, of course not.
doctor.
Of course not.
You've got to, you've got these people that are supposed to be national experts. You listen to what they have to say, you make your decisions.
That's right.
there was almost a come to Jesus moment when a few months ago, weeks ago, the president said, look, I'm hearing all this stuff. Are these vaccines good? Are they bad? Somebody get to the bottom of this. Well, obviously, the right people didn't get to the bottom of this. If he's shaking hands, oh, and at the same time announcing that, oh, yeah, I've had a messenger RNA, I've had my messenger RNA shot for COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, it's over.
Yeah, well,
It's over.
unfortunately, yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I think there is that sense that it's beyond just this specific issue, that people voted for a revolution, if you will, and
Yeah.
taking back control of their government and not being run by the oligarchs. And now it feels like the oligarchs are still very much in control. And I mean, look, I would just say this about you. You're a man of not only have incredible background in this, but the moral courage that from day one, when COVID came, you were calling out this. I remember talking to you about you just saying straight up, they're constantly vaccinating against a strain of the virus that doesn't exist anymore, that is already
Yeah.
extinct. You can't create a vaccine. It
Yeah.
mutates faster than you can create the vaccine. So you're always
Every 2 weeks, it mutates.
right. Okay. I'm not the brightest child in the world. I have to take off my socks to count past 10. But you managed to teach me that, and it made sense to me, which is, yeah. But the thing is, if that's not what you care about, if all you care about is that you're going to make billions and billions and billions of dollars off this vaccine, and it's really cool because the government is effectively going to mandate everybody buy your product, then
Yeah.
that doesn't really matter that it's useless. And that's before we get to the stuff that you've talked about in great detail, which is, yeah, and it's not just useless, man. It's killing people and messing people up and doing all kinds of other things. But that, as opposed
How do
to,
we think it's transferring into the next generation?
and yeah, now that's great that you
ACOG
don't,
was ACOG, the American College of Obstetrician and Gynecology. They were dead set against this vaccine being given to pregnant women initially until they got $11 million from the CDC to help promote the vaccines. And now they're still promoting it. In some states, pregnant women are still being injected. So, on one hand,
once you become
we
part of
have
the
the data.
conspiracy,
On
you
one
kind of
hand,
have to
we have the
protect it.
reality. They're not matching up. So
Well,
I've
Doc, I feel
pretty
like
much done what I could.
I look, you used the term American hero in reference to somebody else earlier. I'm going to tell you this, as far as I'm concerned, you're an American hero because, first of all, long before any of this started, you were already on the front line trying to keep Americans alive, working at Fort Detrick, and uh, and you have had the moral courage to be out there telling the truth from day one. And I will pray to God that RFK Jr. find I don't diminish, I don't minimize the difficulty of the situation he's in. I will pray to God he finds the moral courage to do the right thing here because
The courage, Sam. He's got to find the staff. His staff let him down. They wouldn't let him fight back. We had him on the ropes after that first interview with Bannon. This is the first a lot of people have ever heard anything about this, that these things
yes,
were dangerous.
yeah,
And we needed to get out there and hammer it for the next 2 weeks, 60 minutes, which I don't like.
no, but
And
you're
but
trying to
the
reach
Sunday
Americans.
morning things
Yep.
and just get the word out, these things are dangerous. And it wasn't allowed. Stephanie Spear wouldn't allow it. I'm in a chain of command, Sam.
Of course.
I respect the chain of
Of course.
command.
Yes.
I've got the chief of staff telling me don't do it. I sent a lot of requests through from the media. Not one of them was approved in complete counter to what Mr. Kennedy told me to do.
Yeah, well, that's an
It
old
was,
game. That's an old game in lots of bureaucracies, as we both know. The boss says something in the office, and then when you walk out the door, the underlings then begin to immediately work the other way behind his back, right? Which is
well,
cut things off. I have had that happen to me inside federal agencies. We just heard from the director himself, do X, Y, and Z. As soon as you walk out the door, the chief of the division says, I don't care what he said. These are your marching orders. That's the way it works sometimes.
you know, you've got 1 point what, 3 billion Chinese out there that want this country gone.
Yep.
And all we seem to be doing here is helping them.
Yes.
You can't get your act together for a virus with less than a 1% mortality rate.
Yeah.
What are you going to do when you see a 20% mortality rate pandemic?
That's right. What are we going to do when we face a true threat?
We have
Something on the level of smallpox comes to the United States.
Jerry Parker came in to the White House to be the one point of contact for everything pandemic biological defense. They put him in an NSC office rather than the congressionally mandated Office of Pandemic Preparedness. By law, that office has to be open. He got stuck in the NSC. There were 6 holdover staff from the Office of Pandemic Preparedness. He got those. Susie gradually took them away from him until he was all there by himself and said, screw it, I resign. We have no point of contact now. There's no one. Next pandemic, you'll have another round of vaccines.
Well, and somebody will be a trillionaire this time.
Yeah, if they aren't already. Bird
Doc,
flu should have jumped by now,
we're
Sam.
we're
It
we're
hasn't jumped yet.
we're bumping up on an hour, so I'm going to call it quits, and maybe we'll jump into bird flu in the next installment. What do you think?
Sure.
All right. Folks, thanks for watching, and please share this with everybody you know, because we're really at a very critical juncture, I fear, as to whether any real meaningful change is gonna happen. Thanks for watching.